Shalom everyone. We are continuing our limud of Sefer Yechezkel. In Perek Dalet, we looked at certain symbolic acts that the Navi had to engage in. He had to engrave Yerushalayim on a brick surrounded by a siege. He had to lie down on his left side for 390 days, and then on his right side for 40 days. He had to bake a very coarse, inferior bread and only eat a small amount of it every 24 hours for the 390-day period, and drink water in very, very small measure. And now, again, the Perek division is not anything to do with the narrative here. As I said many times, it was added by the Goyim. We're just continuing with a fourth symbolic act. This is the same Nevuah, and this is a time, once again, where Yechezkel is not talking. V'yatza ben Adam. And you, ben Adam, that's the term Hashem always used only for the Navi Yechezkel. Kach lecha cherev chada. Take a very sharp sword, a very sharp knife. Ta'era galavim. A razor of the type that a barber uses. Tikachen olach, take. V'havarta al roshcha. Shave your head. Zikanecha, shave your beard. Shave off all your hair. V'lokachta lecha mozne mishka. And take a scale, a very delicate scale, so you can weigh, you could take the weight. Obviously, hair is very light. Take the weight of the hair that you're weighing. V'chilaktam, and then divide it into three. Take all of the hair off your head and beard. It's mashma, he did not shave his arms or legs, so there are times in the Torah where there's a complete body shave. It's mashma, this did not involve a complete body shave. Now again, you do have a problem. You're not allowed to be mashchis the beard with a razor. So the question was, did he break that halacha? Is this called a hiras shah, like a one-time event? A Navi could violate the Torah. But be it as it may, he now has a pile of hair of his beard and his head, and he should weigh it and divide it into three piles. Shalishis ba'ur tavir b'toch ha'ir. Kimlos Yemei HaMatzar. When you finish your siege against the city, that means the brick, meaning after the 390 and the 40, after 430 days, take a third of your hair, stick it in the brick, cracks in the brick, and burn it so it gets burnt in the brick. We'll explain what this means. That's 1/3. V'lokachta es hashlishit take b'cherev seviv ha'seha. And the third, you should chop up even more finely with your sword and scatter it around the brick. V'hashlishis, and the third, tizra l'ruach, throw to the wind. V'cherev arik achareim, and a sword will be lifted up against them. Now it's not clear what that means exactly, but let's see. Let's go further in the psukim. V'lakachta misham, and after you've scattered a third to the wind, retrieve a little bit of them, and put it in the corner of your garment. Umehem otikach, and of the third that you scattered, take another little bit. Hishlachno osam el tocha eish, throw them into a fire. V'sarafta isam bo'eish, and mimenu, from this, a fire will come to all Beis Yisrael. So again, A third is burnt in the brick. A third is chopped up with the sword and scattered around the city. A third is thrown into the wind. You retrieve a little bit, throw that into a fire, and retrieve another little bit and put it in the corner of your garment. So this is a symbolic action. What does it mean? So Hashem says, Kai Amar Hashem Elokim, Zeis Yerushalayim Asher Chagayim Samtia. My beloved city Yerushalayim I put among many, many nations, in the middle of many nations who look at Yerushalayim and admired it. Usvi Vaisar Ratzais, and around Yerushalayim are many kingdoms. And yet Yerushalayim was considered to be the greatest and best of all, at least spiritually. And yet Yerushalayim rebelled against me, and they were worse than all the nations. And they violated my laws even more than all of those lands. Ki b'mishpatai ma'asu, they despised my laws. V'chukosai leholchu b'hem, and they did not walk in my statutes. Lachein kayamar Hashem Elokim, yan hamanchem min hagayim asher shivdechem, because you have walked. Hamanchem, because your multitudes, hamanchem, because your multitudes are worse. That word is missing here, but are worse than the goyim that are around you. And because b'chukosai lo halachtem, and because es mishpatai lo yasisem, ucha mishpatei hagoyim asher yusechem lo yasisem, you weren't even as good as the other goyim, because at least they were faithful to their gods, and you did not have loyalty to your God. So because of that, Lachain, Kai Amar Hashem Elokim, Hineni Olayach Gamani, I am against you. V'yasisi b'tochech mishpatim li'enei hagayim, I will do judgments against you that all the nations of the world will see. V'yasisi bach eis asher lo asisi v'eis asher lo esa kamaya ait, and what will be done are things I've never done until now and I won't do again. Yan kol tov asayach, because of your abominations. And lachein, what will happen is, avais yeichlu banim b'teichech, the starvation will be so great that fathers will eat the dead bodies of their children. Ubanim yeichlu avaisam, and children, or adults' children, will eat the flesh of their parents. V'yasisi bach shavatim, and I will do judgments against you. V'zeiresi kol she'risayach l'chol ruach, and those who survive will be scattered to the wind. Now this means both in terms of people running away and in terms of being exiled. Many Jews just ran away. Lachein, chayani nom Hashem Elokim, by my life, says Hashem, Imlo yanis mikdashi times, because you contaminated my temple. B'chol shikutzayach, with all of your repulsive activities, b'chol tavosayach, with all of your abominations. Gamani egra, I will take you away. V'leisachos eini, my eyes will have no mercy. V'gamani lo echma, I will not have compassion. So now it explains. Shali shiseich badever yamusu ubarav yichlu b'sochech. A third of you will die in the city through plague and through famine. So that represents the first third that gets burnt up in the city. So they're not going to. So burning up does not mean they will die by fire, but that's a reference to the fire, so to speak, of famine and plague. Now the second third, which is scattered around the city, that refers to the soldiers who are fighting the Babylonians, who will die by the sword. Right? So 1/3 will die in the city by famine and plague. The other third will die by the sword. They're chopped up by the sword and scattered around the brick, which is around the city. The third are those who either go into exile or escape. They're scattered all over the place. L'chol ruach hazarah, they will be scattered, but the sword will go after them. And that's why it says, indeed, that part of it will be chopped up, and part of it will be thrown into the fire, meaning they will die in different ways, but a little bit will survive, so to speak, in the corners of Yechezkel's beged. My anger will be used up and spent, and only then will I be calmed down. Hashem dibarti, that it is I, the God, that did this, b'kinasi, in my zealousness. When my anger gets spent on this. V'yatnech, and I will make you lechorva, total destruction, ulecherpa, and for shame and humiliation, b'goyim asher shivosayach, among all the nations that are around you. They will look at you and say, what happened to this people? Li'enei kol over, every passerby will be mishtomem, v'haisa cherpa, and it will be a humiliation, ugadufa, a blasphemy, as how could it even happen? Musar, people will take musar, chastisement, from this. Umeshama, from the utter devastation. Even the Goyim will say, look at what happened to the Jews. All of these judgments will be with fury and with anger, and with teichacha, chastisements of fury. Ani Hashem dibarti, I, God, say this. B'shalchi eschitze harav haram bahem, I will send arrows of famine against them. Asher hayu l'mashchis, that will destroy them. Asher eshla shalach osam l'shacheschem. V'rav eisef alechem v'shavarti lechem mati lachem. Now again, so there will be this famine. Why this is a famine when we had the other things as well, I'm not sure. Then Pasuk Yudzayin says, V'shilachti alechem ra'av, famine, chaya ra, wild animals, b'shikulech, and you will be bereaved of your children. V'dever v'dam yavo, there will be plague and bloodshed. V'cherev avi alayech, ani Hashem dibarti. So this is now remember, Yechezkel is not saying these words. This is what Hashem is telling Yechezkel. Right now, Yechezkel is in his period of silence, but he's communicating this nevuah not in the words that Hashem is telling him. That's how I understand the parsha here, but through his symbolic acts, through the picture of Yerushalayim in the siege, and through his shechiva on the right and on the left, and through the dividing up of, through the Yechezkel bread, the bread of poverty and repulsiveness, that he only eats in limited quantities, and through the splitting of the hair, through burning and cutting in the sword and scattering, all of which are the punishments that Am Yisrael will suffer. So Yechezkel really is one of the Nevi'im who engages in many, many symbolic maisim, in which he communicates his nevuah not only by words, but he communicates his nevuah by actions. So this is the end of Perek Hey.